Good afternoon, everyone. And I must say, it does seem slightly strange standing here talking to a screen and camera instead of standing up at conference. But anyway, I'm going to be talking to you today about my topic, which is farmer-to-farmer knowledge exchange, and in particular, its relevance and challenges during change. Now, this might seem a slightly unusual topic for someone who works for Natural England on agri-environment schemes, but it was inspired by a group of farmers I was working with in East Anglia, whose photos are on the left-hand side of the slide. And they were involved in a pilot looking at payment by results, which Ali has just mentioned. And they happened to mention that one of the unexpected benefits of being involved in the project was coming together as a group, getting to know each other and sharing their knowledge and experiences. And that really struck a chord with me. I've had the privilege of growing up on a farm, family farm in Oxfordshire, with the photo in the centre, now run by my brother in partnership with my parents. And when I was looking for some photos of the farm to put together for this presentation, it gave me the opportunity to reflect on the changes that I have seen during my lifetime. The photo at the top shows Dad on the combine that I remember when I was little. And I remember the great excitement when he actually got a combine with a cab. The photo to the right shows the combine my brother used this summer, which can cut as much in an hour as Dad's combine could do in a day. So it just goes to show that during my lifetime, both working and living in the industry, there has been a lot of change. And to quote the familiar saying, change is constant. But the pace and scale of change at the moment feels unprecedented. In the UK, we've got the biggest change in agricultural policy in over a generation as we move from the common agricultural policy to our own domestic policy. And as I travelled, I heard common pressures in every country that I visited, whether it was relationships between countries impacting on trade, whether it was the increasing scrutiny the industry is coming under from consumers, or something that I think is going to have the biggest impact, and that's weather, and the increased frequency of extreme weather events leading to too much or too little water. And to me, knowledge exchange at times like this, both the technical aspects and the social benefits it brings, is vital. I want to pause a moment longer on this slide to reflect on my own personal experiences with Nuffield and the opportunities it's provided me. I hadn't travelled much before my Nuffield, and I'd only actually ever flown once by myself, and I managed to visit more countries in 7 months last year than the previous 42 years of my life added together. And the opportunity to immerse yourself in the agricultural industries of the countries that I visited and the people I met, it's hard to put into words what a fantastic experience it was. I met with farmers, advisors, researchers, government officials and non-governmental organisations, and they're all incredibly generous in giving up their time. And you're also travelling by yourself, so you have to stand on your own 2 feet, which is great for confidence. And this wouldn't have been possible without the support of Nuffield Farming Scholarship Trust and my main sponsor, Central Region Farmers Trust, but also my additional sponsors, Ian and Fiona Waller of Hamden Bottom Farm, East of England Agricultural Society and Lamb Family Business. Thank you to you all. And of course, my support network, my work colleagues, my friends, and in particular, my family. I could not have done this without my family, so a huge thank you. When I set out on my Nuffield, I hoped to find the perfect method of knowledge exchange, that silver bullet. But I quickly came to realise that everything is about people. No matter how technical the subject matter, people are key, and people are key to knowledge exchange. And I heard that people are worried about the changes that they see coming before them, and that knowledge exchange provides an important part in supporting them. In New Zealand, I met with the Red Meat Profit Partnership, which is a partnership between New Zealand government and 9 different industry organisations, including banks and meat processors, with the aim of building resilience in the red meat sector. And they're using a participatory action learning approach. And this approach involves bringing small groups of farmers together, and they encourage the whole farming team to get involved with a facilitator. They decide what topics they want to share, and they discuss them with the idea that they learn something new and they can try new things with the support of their peers. Participatory action learning, which is also used by the AgriScout programme in Wales, can be used to approach something called a wicked problem. Wicked problems are complex They're not straightforward, and often more questions are raised in trying to answer them. And they require a collaborative approach. They require people to share their knowledge and try something new. And to me, at the moment, I think farming is facing some wicked problems. With the RMPP model, each group chooses their facilitator, and it's that facilitator's role to draw the knowledge out of the room, because the answer is so often in the room, and only once that's exhausted will they bring in someone else. I met with the Central Bay of Plenty group, whose photo was on the slide, and I heard why they got involved, and they're worried. They're worried about the future. It feels different to the 1980s when subsidies went and the focus was on production. They see the changes coming before them could be a cost to their business. Being part of the group has reassured them, it's made them realise they're not alone, but it's also moved them all up a bit and made them realise they can drive their own destiny rather than wait to be told. And if they hadn't been part of this group, they'd have been on their own and worrying. The group was a mix of ages and had been together for about a year, so the bonds were starting to form. And one thing that struck me was the gentleman who's closest to the camera, who was one of the older members of the group, told me how he'd done something different after every single meeting. He was thoroughly enjoying being involved with the group. And that challenged something that I heard often when I was talking to people, how only younger people are willing to change. It's got nothing to do with age. It's all to do with mindset. Trust was a word that came up in every single conversation that I had, and the importance of building relationships in order to enable communication. James Turner, a New Zealand Nuffield scholar, said to me that before communication can happen, a bridge has to be built. And often when farmers come together, that bridge is already in place. And the social aspect of knowledge exchange in creating these relationships is key. Agricultural Marketing and Production Systems, AMPS, in New South Wales, regularly hold field days, and they always follow it with a barbecue and beer. And that's where the real knowledge exchange happens, where people have the opportunity to discuss what they've seen and heard during the day. All the learning happens over a beer. Allowing time for social interactions during meetings, the hallway sessions as they were described to me, is so important, as is food and drink. And personally, I find that a very important part of a meeting. As we've evolved, food acts as a central part of social gatherings and acts as an enabler for people to discuss their views and experiences. Being on farm also helps create the right environment for knowledge exchange. It provides the opportunity to kick the dirt, and seeing is believing. And I experienced this when I met with the Navan Dairy discussion group in Ireland, whose photo is on the slide. Being on farm enabled the host farmer, Paul, to walk us through his milking routine so we could discuss the problem he wanted to share with the group. And it made such a difference. And this social aspect is so important for mental health. In the words of Alfred Grant, a farmer who I met in Austria, whose photo is on the left-hand side of the slide, you have to be optimistic to learn something new. The importance of good mental health during times of change cannot be underestimated. Knowledge exchange can play an important part in this. As I travelled, I heard how people are feeling increasingly isolated in the farming industry. And I find it a fascinating contradiction that we have more ways of communicating now than ever before. People are feeling more lonely. In Australia, farms are getting bigger. There are less people around, and this is impacting on other aspects of life in the rural community. Sport plays an important part in the social lives in rural communities in Australia, and some towns are struggling to get sports teams together. I met with Birchip Cropping Group in South Australia. They set out as a research and development organisation, but their role has evolved to build rural resilience within the community that they sit and to enable that community to adapt to change. And farms don't sit in isolation, they sit within the infrastructure of a wider rural community. And this is so important that the social capital that exists both within the farming industry and the rural community that they sit within is strong. And social capital can simply be defined as the resources you get from the people you know and respect. In Canada, I heard about the importance of language when I met with the Ontario Soil Network. This network has been set up to encourage the use of cover crops and good soil health to protect the water quality in Lake Erie. I met with Mel Limes, one of the founders, who told me she'd use different language, speaking to an innovator compared to a middle adopter. This view was shared by Dave McEachran, one of the farmers involved. Dave regularly hosts farm walks on his farm and talks to farmers about the cover crops and what he's doing. But he's very careful about what words he uses. He doesn't use words such as experiment or go and try this, because he said they flag a risk. For Dave, who'd heard about the importance of cover crops for years from advisors and researchers, it wasn't until he heard it from some other farmers that he decided to give it a go himself. For Dave, it was the messenger, not the message, hearing it from someone like me. Knowledge exchange is all about trust and social interaction. To share knowledge that is created through experience, which has a definition, it's called tacit knowledge. Trusted relationships and personal contact is required. And with tacit knowledge, people often don't realise the value of what they have got and the value of that knowledge to other people. And again, I want to quote Alfred Grant here. If knowledge isn't shared, it's lost. So, my key messages to government: recognise the importance of the social capital within the farming industry and wider rural communities, and these trusted relationships and the impact these have on mental health. We need good mental health to weather the changes that we've come in before us and build on the existing knowledge to achieve that. For industry, collaboration. We don't have an extension service in the UK. We have what could be considered a fragmented knowledge exchange landscape, which is fantastic in the fact it provides a huge amount of diversity. But what it can mean is that people can surround themselves with other people who think and feel like they do, and create what can be called echo chambers, which is very comfortable, but doesn't necessarily create change. By collaborating between organisations and bringing sectors together, people can hear different things, share knowledge, and be encouraged to try something new. Farmers, recognise the value of the tacit knowledge that you've got, be confident in sharing it, and be open-minded in receiving it. And ultimately, thinking about the RMPP farmers, we need to take control of our own destiny. We need to think, what does success look like for ourselves, our families, and our business? Where are we now? And what do we need? And where are our gaps in knowledge in achieving it? If I had just one line for my Nuffield, I would say it's all about the people. And so I want to leave with a thought. Think about the tacit knowledge that you have, that knowledge you've gained through experience, and who you share it with. Share it widely for the benefit of yourselves, your networks, and the industry. Thank you.